Hey class, this is Dr. Estrada. I'm going to walk you through our first data project. I'm not going to do everything, but I will show you the tips and tricks and basically what I'm looking for. A couple of issues always with the files. So if you click on the instructions and you don't download them, you might not be able to watch the video. So these ones are usually like where to click or the formatting of the paper. So my recommendation is that you hit download, and this is after I downloaded it. You can actually see the videos there. So that should help you. The other issue that I see often is, sorry about that, you click on the data and it looks like this. So you also have to hit download. It's not going to preview it because it's not like a Word file or something like that. So you need to download it into your desktop and then open it from there. Let me show you what that will look like in Jamovi. So you would open your Jamovi and it would be empty. I already opened it, that's why it's populated. But you would go into open, and from open, you would go here on desktop or downloads, or you can use browse to find wherever you saved the file and then open it from there. I'm not going to do it because I don't want you to see my files. Okay. So I eliminated a couple of observations. Sometimes I change the variable so don't get too attached to everything I say, or this particular variables that I'm going to use as examples. But this looks very much like what I'm expecting. I deleted observations so you don't get the same numbers as me, so you still have to do it. Just don't get scared because our totals are different. That's fine. Okay, so the first challenge for all of these data projects is going to be deciding whether the variables are continuous, nominal, or ordinal. So for example, we know, let's do gender. For gender, we have categories, and we have the categories here. Like I tell you, and I actually tell you it needs to be nominal and you need to have these categories. So you need to go into Jamovi. You're going to double click where the name is. For me, it's double click. It might be, I'm using a Mac, so it might be different for you. If I had asked you to name the variable, you could have named it here. But here it was female, male, transgender, and did not respond. Did not wish to respond. You don't have to delete the ones, two or threes. You can just leave them there. Let's say one day you decided to take out those. It would just go back to that one. That's fine. But you notice how it populated everything here. So when you create your tables, instead of having the numbers, it's going to have the labels that you put into that variable. And that makes it easier for you to know what's inside that variable. For example, age, it is numerical, and there's no, here I guess the options could be ordinal or continuous, but for ordinal, we still need to have categories, correct? So even there's an order to those categories, that doesn't quite fit for age. So this is a numerical variable, and I would argue we need to make it continuous. And you have to do this for pretty much all of them. Sometimes you get lucky, like with income, it's already labeled as continuous, so it works. Sometimes you won't get lucky, but you need to be responsible for labeling those variables correctly because that's part of you learning in the class. For smokes, you also are going to have levels. It's in the instructions, and you need to put those, instructions here. You need to put those labels in there. I will notice if you don't create these labels because they show up in the tables. Okay, let's go to descriptives again. So I have videos here on how to find the descriptives, but I'll do it again here. I also have a video on how to do your cover page, so just make sure you watch it and format your cover page and your paper appropriately because we do expect the students to have a little bit of skills doing APA style. I have examples of the headings here because I ask you in my instructions, like make sure you have a heading that's called methods and it needs to be first level. What does that mean? Here you have first level, it needs to be center, bolded, and then you start methods uppercase, and that's literally it. You're gonna have a second heading, and that needs to be second level, and so on. And I'll have this for all of your data projects. For this assignment, you don't need hypothesis, but as we move on into hypothesis testing, you might have stuff to put in here. But for now, we are just starting, so don't worry just yet, at least. So indicate the total sample size. How are you going to find the total sample size? You just need to do descriptives in Jamovi. So I'm going to go with the continuous variables. And the reason I'm going to go with the continuous variables, let me go back to the instructions, is because that's really what I asked for here. I need the continuous variables, age and income, and I need the ordinal or nominal, marital status, ethnicity, gender, and smoke. So I'm going to start with the continuous ones. And what I requested for that was the mean and the standard deviation. Let's go to analysis, exploration, descriptives. So I want age and I want income, which are going to be my two continuous variable. And it just populates everything here. I only asked for the mean and the standard deviation. So I could potentially go into statistics and just remove all of that. And it gives me the total sample size, the mean, and the standard deviation. So let's go into Word now. I'm gonna copy this table. The way I copy it is that I click on it and it opens this menu. It tells me whether I want everything, the analysis, or the table. In this case, I just want the table to be able to look at it. And then I click copy. Can you screenshot it or use the snipping tool so you don't have to worry about losing its format when you transfer it either into Word or Google Chrome? Yes, you can definitely do that. I'll show you how to do it. And I have a video actually in the instructions on that. I'm going to put it here. Well, actually, I'm going to start with remember to add a cover page. There's a video in the instructions. Punto. New page. Then you're going to have methods. So methods needs to be a first level heading, so that's going to be bolded and center. Then you need to have a second heading, which is going to be participants. This one needs to be second level. Where am I even getting this information? From here, methods, participants. In this participant paragraphs, we need to have the sample size. So for that, I am going to paste my little, I'm going to move this, no, actually no, my table here so I can look at it. We do not need to have it bolded. All analysis were conducted in the statistical called Jamovi. And you give me the version. Sometimes students ask me, why do I need to give the version? Well, if the program is not, programmed correctly, it's always nice to have that citation, because that way the error is not really yours, it's the software. And it wouldn't happen when we calculate the mean, but it could happen with more, difficult statistical methods. How do you know the version? It's here. To look at the references, you're going to click on the three little dots. Make sure here where it says references, it says visible. Sometimes it could be hidden. Make sure it's visible. It's version 2.3 for me. It might be different for you depending on what you downloaded or whether you're using the cloud version. So I'm just going to do version 2.3. There you go. The total sample size of participants. And you can give me more details here depending on what information I gave you in the instructions. It could have been college students, it could have been old adults. It really depends on the scenario that I picked for the data project. So here's your sample size, essentially. And again, I'm using a different sample size so you don't get the same values as me. And it's going to be this number. Okay, per APA style, the N needs to be uppercase. Technically, you need to have a space before and after the equal sign. I'm going to be honest, neither me or the TA have the bandwidth to check on this, but that's essentially how you have to do it. When you have large numbers, you need to have a little comma there. That's another thing that I'm not too strict about, but that is the proper way of doing it. I'm going to describe one continuous variable just to give you an example. The age of the participants was 24.6, parentheses, standard deviation 2.90. So that's, I got this information from here. Sometimes students ask me, do I need to color code that? No, I'm just doing it so you know what I'm looking at. Whenever we put in parentheses M or SD for mean and standard deviation, we need to italicize it. So that's part of the APA style. The income for participants was, or had a mean of, well, that's not bad. Well, depends. And a standard deviation, that's a pretty large standard deviation. There you go. And remember to italicize this one. Okay, so we actually did the two continuous variables, so I gave you more than I should have. Now we can add the information can be found in table 1. So we can format this table. We can say table 1. That needs to be bolded. And then this little description of the table, that usually needs to be in italics. Technically, everything should be in the same font. But what I've noticed for students is once you start messing with the font, sometimes the tables get distorted. So I just let you leave it like that. It's fine. I won't get upset. But this one does need to be bolded, and this one does need to be in italics. Okay. If you screenshot it, just make sure you crop this, and you can type descriptives in italics. That's okay too. Now let's do a nominal variable, just for fun, and because we need the example. Okay. So I'm gonna do. How about an easy one like marital status and smokes, so you can see the differences. So this one already has the labels, so you can see them there. We have to put them for gender and we have to put them for smokes. I just haven't done it. I want you to see what that's going to look like. Remember, I exited out. Let me put you over here. I exited out of this table, so I'm going to go back. Analysis and then exploration, descriptives. It opens this menu. I'm going to put marital status and smokes. And then this is where students panic like, oh, it's not doing anything. It's not even giving me information for marital status. Well, remember, these variables have the little Venn diagram here, or bubbles, as some of my students like to call them. What that means is that they're nominal. So whenever we have a nominal variable, what we need to do is make sure we click here where it says frequency table. Sometimes students feel tempted because they see the little bubbles or a Venn diagram here. They feel tempted to put it in there and split by. That is not quite correct. What that's going to do is it's going to split the information into these variables, and it's not quite what you want to do. So resist that temptation. Make sure you put your nominal variables here. And again, I didn't do all the variables. I'm just doing a couple of examples. And then make sure you clicked on frequency tables. So this is not what we want. This is basically built for continuous variables. What we want, because we have nominals, are the frequency tables. And it gives us the percentage. And it gives us the count. It also gives us the cumulative percent, but we're not going to write about it. I mentioned the labels when we were looking at the data. This one has labels, marital status, smokes doesn't have them yet, even though I did put it in the instructions to put them. What I wanted to show you is that the labels also show up here. So I'll know if you forgot to put those labels. And you could lose some points and you don't want to do that. So here, remember to put those labels. You have to do it for gender as well. I'm going to copy the first one. So I just click on the table. Again, I'm on a Mac. Table, copy, and then I go take it to Word or Google Documents, whichever. I'm going to put it here. It's actually kind of hard for me to see, so I am going to delete this one for now. Do not delete it in your own paper. I just need to look at it right now. And it's hard for me when I'm recording. Okay. In table 2, remember table needs to be capitalized. We find information or data, whichever you prefer. You don't have to use my exact words. You can get creative if you wish to. On the participants' marital status. So what we're going to do here is we're going to describe participants, what's in the table. The distribution was as follows. Divorced and equals 294, parentheses, 19.5% of the sample. Married, same. I'm actually going to copy it so I don't have to type it again. There you go. Whenever you put the little lowercase n, that means you're talking about a subsample. And we need to put in italics. So that one needs to be in italics as well. And you have to do this for all the categories. Never married. So that's 302. And basically 20%. 20%. And you have to do it for all of the categories. All the categories. And the variables I asked for. So let me go to the instructions. So I asked for marital status, I asked for ethnicity, gender, and smoking variable. Why? Sometimes students ask me, like, why do I have to do this twice? Like, do the table and the categories here. Well, it helps me to know that you recognize that the variable was nominal or ordinal, depending. Sometimes I change the number, so I need to make sure you're not just copy pasting from the previous assignment or something like that. Not that you would ever do that. But yes, like in practice, like in actual publication, sometimes researchers will just say, look at table 2. That's enough. Like you wouldn't have to describe all of the variables. But it's also really good practice if you want to do research at some point, because as an undergraduate or a master's student, sometimes this is what professors will ask the research assistants to do. Just help me describe the participants, because it's one of the, I don't want to say easiest, but it's very basic and it's always needed. So that it's good practice. So make sure you do all of the variables here. The last thing you're going to need is go to a new page. And before you go into the new page, remember to paste all your tables and format them. So in terms of formatting, is really just adding the table number, table 2, and this needs to be bolded and this needs to be in italics. Again, as I mentioned before, technically this font should be the same as this one, Times New Roman or Arial. But when you start messing with the font here, sometimes it'll get distorted. So I just let students leave it like that. That's fine. Okay, now we're going to go to a new page. In that new page, we're going to have a subheading, a heading, references. It's not sub, it's just a heading. But it needs to be first level heading and it needs to be center. And then we're going to add the citation for Jamovi. Where do I get the citation from Jamovi? You're going to go into Jamovi. Make sure you go into the 3 little dots and it already says visible. And it's going to be here. It's already here for you. What I do is I click on it. And it says references, select copy. You could select all, you could just select one of them. I'm going to go with copy. Technically, the one that I'm looking for is the one that says Jamovi. Jamovi uses this other software in the background. That's why it's also citing it. I have no opinion on it. Like, if you want to leave it, that's fine. If you want to take it out, that's fine as well. And you can copy paste them into your Word document. This is not still quite an APA. What we need to do next is do the hanging indent. So I go into View, ruler. Make sure both of your references or your reference is selected. I'm going to use this little, I'm not really sure what they're called. I'm going to use those triangles. Oops, I need to have this highlighted. We're going to drag them both 1/2 inch, and then the top triangle, we're going to drag it back, and that's going to create the hanging indent. And you don't have to mess with anything else. You can just leave it like that. This one actually needs, the whole document needs to be double spaced. Remember, the whole document needs to be double spaced. One thing you do need to remember when you're double spacing is just selecting the part of a text and double spacing those. Because if you double space the tables, again, they're going to get distorted and it's going to look really ugly. And you'll spend a lot of time trying to go back to what the tables were supposed to look like. So just make sure you double space the paragraph over here. Make sure you look at the video for my cover page. I also want to see the page number. So I go insert, page number, it should be to the right. There you go. And technically this should also be Times New Roman or Arial, whichever font you decided. Okay, I think that's the walkthrough. Again, I didn't do all of the variables. I didn't do the whole thing. I used a different sample size so you would have different values as me. But this is essentially what I want to see in your paper.